All right, so we're COMP1050 Animation 2D Tools, Week 2, Part 3. And we're talking about creating nested animations and how to do that. So when you look at animations that are nested, right, sometimes you have an object, like let's say, for example, the alien that we just saw, right? What you can do is the alien can have a motion of its own. Like, for example, if you want to make the alien walk, the alien walk cycle could be part of a nested animation that belongs to the alien symbol itself, right? So the walk happens on its own. So let's say, for example, you had the alien, and if you had a nested animation for walking, walking would happen when you bring him on the stage. He wouldn't move anywhere, but he would see his legs walking, like he's got a walk cycle going on. For him to show that he's walking across the stage, you'd have to physically transform and create a main timeline animation for him to come across the stage from left to right or right to left. Right? So there's two animations going on. The walk cycle for the alien in our example, and then the main animation of him walking across. So here's an example. So what we want to do is we want to make the alien's arms move, right? And what we can do is if you notice, inside the alien timeline, there's a bunch of different layers, right? So let's go back to the alien. Here we go. And if I double click on him, if I go back to frame 1 and I double click on him, I see feet, head, body, arm 1 and arm 2, right? What I want to do is I want to right click on the alien's left arm and then create a motion tween. And when I do that, if I go back there, so here I am. So if I'm left clicking on the left arm. Here it is, left arm. I'll be okay. This is the right arm because it's looking at us. Right? And I right click on the alien's left arm. I say create motion tween. Now look, I've got this motion tween for like 10 seconds of the alien's body, right? So if I animate the alien, this is the alien's arm right here, right? If I go back out, I see him, and if I double click in, right, all I see is the alien's arm because he disappears. If I actually go in there, on frame 2, he just disappears and the arm just goes by itself. I don't want that. What I've got to do is I've got to add in the other layers for the other arm. I'll do the same thing with the other arm, and I can move them up and down, right? So how to do that? So the rotation, this little white button here, or white circle, tells us where the alien's arms can rotate, right? So here we go. So I want to move this guy to the end of the motion tween. So here he is there. And then at the end of 10 seconds, I want to zoom into the alien. So let me just zoom in there for you so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's his arm. And if you notice, the rotation angle is right on the shoulder, right? So I can take the transform tool, right? Move this right to the corner, right? And then I can rotate the alien's arm so it goes up at the end of his rotation. Let's just say, right? And now I'm going to exit out of there. If I do that, because I haven't got everything else going on, it's going to look weird. Let's try it out. All you see is an arm, right? So in order for me to make everything else look like something's happening, and again, let me just go back to 100% here. And if I double click into him, here's the arm, but everything else is kind of grayed out. I have to add in frames for the rest of that stuff, right? So I don't have to add keyframes, just regular frames. So I want the original keyframe to be copied. So there he is. So there's his arm, right? So he goes in. Look, so from here to here, right? In 1 second, his arm is going to go up and down. Look, up and then back down, right? But his arm is going to go only up once. It's going to go up at the end of his motion in 10 seconds, right? So that's not really a great animation either. Look, right? So he just kind of flaps it up once, and that's it, and back. So you see, he just does one of these, right? So there's two animations happening. There's the main timeline animation, and then the alien's own animation going on. So again, all we've done is gone to the end of the keyframe because it's added in like 1 second of time when we add it in. Okay. But maybe what we want to do is we want to make it so that it matches the time frame of our total timeline, right? So here's our main timeline. Our main timeline is 36 frames, right? And we're I don't know what your frame rate says. Mine says 24 frames a second, right? So that means, right, the alien itself he's traveling 36 frames, right, for the whole time of that he's with us. 36 frames, he's moving around, right? But what we want to do is we want to match up the animation so that we also take 36 frames up. Right now we only take 10 frames. So if we go into them, right, all I need to do now is I can choose him, the left arm, and I want to go right to frame 36, right? So here I want to add in additional frames all the way to frame 36, insert frames. Same thing with all this stuff. I want to insert frames here and here. Otherwise, I'm not going to see everything. Insert frames. So now, the alien's timeline and the timeline of the animation are the same, right? So there's a keyframe here, right? But maybe what I want to do is move this keyframe, just like we did before, move it to the middle. So instead of 36, I'm going to move it back to 18. So it happens faster. So here it is, it moves up. And then when he comes down to the end, maybe what I want to do is I want to move it back down. So here's this, I want to insert a keyframe. Right? So here it is. And then I want to zoom in here. I'm going to use the transform tool, and I'm going to move this back down to where it was before. Right? That looks about right. So his arm went kind of up and then went down by the end. Now let's check it out. So up and then down, and then up and then down by the end. Now it's hard to see him because he's doing this really weird rotation, right? He's kind of got this weird path going on. So again, if I zoom back out, take it to like 80%, there he is. If his path was straighter, then I could see what I'm doing more. But what he's doing really is he's moving his arm up and down. If I make his other arm flap, so here's his other arm. Okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning. And I'm going to zoom in. So here's his other arm. Okay. And I would add in a motion. I'm going to create motion tweens for him too. So here's his other arm. And I'm going to use the transform tool, use the dot, push that into the corner so it's inside of his shoulder, and rotate this up when we get to here. So the same time I get to here, I want to rotate this arm up as well. So there the alien's moving his arm up, right? And then when I get back down here, right, I want to add a keyframe in for this one, for the left arm. Insert keyframe, position. And I want to move this arm down back to where it was, right? So now he's doing this. He's moving his arms up and down, right? And again, if I was going to come back to the main timeline, his arms are down. And when I run it, it's hard to see, but he does one of these. Right? That's all he's doing. If I want to slow this animation down so you can see it, I could drop the frame rate. Let's drop it down to 12. Right? Or I can expand the timeline. So here it is. A little bit choppier, right? Moving his arms up and then down. Let's go back to I'll move him to 30 frames a second. And this time what I'll do is, like we did before, the whole time frame, the timeline, I'll expand the timeline to 60 frames. Okay, let's take a look what happened to the alien. So go back to 50, or sorry, 80. So there he goes. He's upside down, and that happens at 60. So now he's going to have a much smoother time, and it's going to take longer. Let's try that out. So there it goes. Now you see the motion. So now you see the motion more, because his arms are flapping, right, a lot faster, half the time that it takes for the animation to happen. And you can do that for any body part that he has. So for example, if you don't like just the alien's arms moving, and if you double click on him, right, and you zoom in, so I like to kind of zoom in on my targets, right, to see what I'm doing. And let's say I want his ears to twitch too, right? So here he is. So I highlight his head, double click on his head. Now I'm in his head. Now his head is made up of his left antenna, left eye, right eye, his head, the head itself, and the right antenna. So let's say I want to add this as an image, right? But it doesn't appear to be anything right now. So here it is. I've got the ear. I don't want to get the head, just the ear. There it is. So just the ear. And what I want to do is I want to create a motion tween with the ear. Okay, so now I'm in the head. It's another nested animation I want to do, right? So here it is, create motion tween. It's going to ask me to create a symbol. I say yes. And now this symbol here, I want to make it left ear, right? And the other thing is, where it appears, it created another layer from my ear, right? Left ear. What I wanted to do is I want to make it so it's behind the head, right? So the head is ahead of the left ear, like this. It's behind the left ear. There it is, right? I'll do the same thing for the right ear now. So I'm going to highlight the right ear. There it is. I'm going to create a motion tween for that too. Right? Here it is. And this time I'll call this right ear. Right ear. Here it is for right ear. Right ear. Okay, so I got the motion tweens for that. I've still got to make all the other parts kind of appear. So I'm going to add in frames for all that stuff. For his eyes, and his head, and for his body too. Or else we're going to have issues. So left antenna, right antenna, left ear, right ear. I added frames in there, and I want to go into the end here. I want to choose his left ear, and I'm going to choose transform, just like we did last time. And now I'm going to move my mark, the white mark here, to the corner, again down here, right? So I want to rotate it off this point. And I want to kind of rotate his ear so it goes down like this. And I'll choose the other ear now, and I'll do the same thing. And maybe I'll do the same thing with his ears too. So his ears are going to go down. That kind of doesn't look right, just to there. All right, so it looks kind of like this. It goes, hello, right? My ear is up and down. And that's inside the head animation. So there's 3 layers of nesting. The main timeline, the animation for the arms, or in the body, and then the head, right? And this happens within 30 seconds again, right? Okay, let's pull out. So we're going to go back to the head, to the alien. There's the alien. We're going to go back out to scene 1, and now we're going to animate it. Let's see what happens. So now, the ears kind of go up and down. They flicker, right? And so do the arms. Okay. And that's enough of that one. We kind of did a few more things than they asked us to do, but what the hell, it's fun, right? So the motion editor that we're going to practice now it's really powerful. Like I said, you can add in things like easing and other kind of special effects to your animation. And it kind of defines your motion with lines and curves and everything else, right? Okay. We're going to go to, you can add in different properties here as well. Everything that you can normally do with the timeline, you can do here with the motion editor. And we're just going to skip forward through this one. You can even insert keyframes. Everything that we normally can do with our regular time frame, you can do with the motion editor. The great thing about the motion editor is it allows us to do easing, is where I want to get to, right? So easing, what it's like how it's almost like acceleration and deceleration. That's what easing kind of describes. So, you know, and there's actually other complex patterns that you can have with easing as well. So you can kind of speed up, slow down, and then speed back up again, right? So almost like have a different pattern of movement for your animation. Classic animators hate it, okay, because it's too abrupt. It doesn't look right. Like if you were to talk to Rui, and he's a classic animator, right? He'll tell you that he'd never use easing, and he would never use motion tweens. He would use something called classic tweens, right? Which is actually more towards that old frame-by-frame animation that they used to have. Classic tweens, and we're going to see that later on, they don't have access to the motion editor at all. So you can't do any funny special effects with easing and stuff like that you can do with motion tweens. So what you can do, again, you can right-click or control-click on the second keyframe in the alpha property inside the movie, and then add in a smoothing point, right, inside your motion editor, right. And what you can do is you can change the easing, the way an object eases in, as an example, to a particular when it moves into a scene, right. You can even ease in things like transparencies and other special effects. So how fast they come in and how fast they come out. You can change the pattern, you know, of the easing. Okay, let's open up that whole other document that we had before. Not this one. We're not going to save this one. We're going to open up our working copy FLA that we were working on just now. So we're back to this one now. And what we're going to do is we're going to double click on the library itself, the car left symbol, right? So if we go into our library, here we are, right? And here's our car left symbol. If I double click onto it, what happens is when you double click on a symbol in the library, it brings you into symbol editing mode. In symbol editing mode, once you change something in the library, it's changed for all symbols that have been instantiated on the screen. Hear my words, instantiated on the screen, because that's what they are. They're instances of objects we've defined, graphical objects we've defined that are held in our library. Okay, so now I've done this. I've kind of double-clicked on this symbol. So there's two layers. There's the lights, right, for the actual symbol itself. Here's the lights. And if I want to turn them off and on, here they are. Look, I can turn the lights off and on. How were these lights created? Well, if I actually look at the selection tool, I can actually click onto them. And the lights are actually, it's almost like a blur effect. They're actual objects that we're looking at. If I double click on these symbols, right, so there's actually something called rays, and there they are, right? Rays, right? There's different kinds of rays here. There's another one here as well, behind the scenes. These rays, these light rays, have properties of their own, right? And here they are. They're actually shapes, okay? And all they've been, these shapes that have been created, it almost looks like a cone, right? All they've done is they've been faded out. There's a heavy transparency on this thing, so it's almost, you know, kind of transparent, almost. And if you notice, here's the pattern, the fill pattern that they've used. So kind of a really cool effect. We're going to go back up to car left. So there's two things, lights and this small rumble. Okay. We're going to lock the lights layer because we don't want to mess with that. And then we're going to go to this, we're going to right click on the car and choose motion tween, right? Let's do that. So right click on the car and create motion tween. There we go. And if you notice, the one that got created, because we locked up the lights layer, the small rumble, it created this motion tween. Now nothing really happens here yet. But what we want to try and do, right, is we want to make this car rumble, like actually move up and down, right? So what we want to do is kind of move the car down. This is about 5 pixels, right, by going to the end. So we're going to go to the end of the timeline. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to move this down 5 pixels. So here I am. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I've actually counted down 5 pixels. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on the motion tween in the timeline. So here it is. And we're going to click the motion editor. And if you notice, right, from time 0, so here we are, all it does is it goes up and down, right? So it goes down and goes up, and it happens so quickly, so it kind of jumps up and down like this. That's what it's supposed to do. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to add in an ease, right, at the bottom. So if you actually scroll down, there's a section called eases, right? Here's simple and slow ease is already there, and we're going to add in another one called random. Okay. So it's going to jump from one value to the other in random intervals and kind of create this like stair pattern from a graphic perspective. We're going to change this to 15 to really make it like quite a different random value. So a lot more randomness involved in the easing. So we're going to just drag across. We're going to go right to 15. Okay, so random 15. We're going to go to the basic motion category, right? So basic motion is just a category that's inside this motion editor. If I scroll up, it's hard to kind of see, but here it is. Here's the basic motion category, right? And right at the top, we're going to choose random, right? If we test our movie, right? Now we're going to have that rumbling. And there it is. Right? So what's happened? How do we do that? So all that the car did was we added 5 pixels. We went 5 pixels down. But remember that Flash, what it does is Flash will move the 5 pixels down, but it'll do it over the course of the time frame of the car. Okay. Our timeline in the main timeline is a lot longer than the time frame for the car, right? So if I go back to the timeline, the time frame for the nested time frame for the car is 20, right? 20 frames. And if you notice, as I scrub across the time frame, what Flash does with that ease that I created, right? It chooses a random value to move the car up and down until it gets to the down value, right? So it goes from up to down, but it does it instead of a smooth motion like we saw before, it does it in these random steps. So it goes up and down and up and down and up and down until it gets to 5 pixels low, right? And then it pops back up to after the loop is done, because it does it for 20 frames, and this will run continuously. It's this internal nested loop, if you will keep running as long as the main timeline is going. So if we go to the main timeline, go back to scene 1 just to check that out, and I'm just going to zoom out so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So here we are zoomed out more. And here's our left car. Our left car comes in at 75, right? But stays in until 190. So 75 by 190, that's like 125 frames, 115 frames, right? So for 115 frames, that car is in our timeline. Is there physically, but its internal loop pattern, its internal its nested animation runs for every 20 frames. So we already have it actually goes through this whole loop thing 6 times before our movie's over. So it actually goes up and down and goes through these steps in this random easing fashion 6 different times. It loops through its own timeline 6 times, right? And this is what I was talking about before. Classic animators, what they used to do, and in earlier versions of Flash, didn't have the capability that our current version of Flash has, right? It just didn't have that capability, right? So what it ended up doing was they used classic tweens, and what they would do is the classic tweens, they would be created different ways, didn't have the same kind of control that we have here with motion tweens, right? Chances are 90% of the work you're going to be doing outside in the field, unless you're a classic animator and an artist, right, is with motion tweens. If you're an artist, you're going to use classic tweens because that's closer to what you would have learned as an animator. So we talked about regular 2D stuff, but what we want to try and do is add this movie title to the stage, right? So I'm going to leave this for you as homework. I want you to check it out. It's something that you're going to have to learn how to do anyway for your banner ad, right? So try it out at home, right? And instead of us doing it here together in class, it's going to take up a lot of time. And I want to get to that inverse kinematics for today's class as well. But what it does is it'll make it so that you can use the 3D rotation tool, and again, the assets are all there, to create this, this effect with the text that we saw earlier. Okay? So I'll leave that to you. It's only a few frames left, and we're going to go on. In the meantime, I'll pause this movie, and we'll start fresh with inverse kinematics.